everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Normally I post on Fridays, but today it's October 31st, it's Halloween, and this is a sorta creepy unsolved mystery channel, so you know I had to make some kind of special video. Today we're going to talk about the origins of Halloween, its history, and then of course, how it became the commercialized, candy-filled holiday it is today. So let's dive right in. Halloween started with the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, when people would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts. One source explains Samhain was the division of the year between the lighter half, summer, and the darker half, winter. At Samhain, the division between this world and the other world was at its thinnest, allowing spirits to pass through. The family's ancestors were honored and invited home whilst harmful spirits were warded off. People wore costumes and masks to disguise themselves as harmful spirits and thus avoid harm. Bonfires and food played a large part in the festivities. The bones of slaughtered livestock were cast into a communal fire, household fires were extinguished, and then started again from the bonfire. Food was prepared for the living and the dead. Food for the ancestors who were in no position to eat it was ritually shared with the less well-off. However, like a lot of pagan holidays honestly, this one was turned into a Christian holiday. One source says that during the 8th century, Pope Gregory III moved the annual festival, which was an early predecessor to All Saints' Day, for Romans to November 1st, right around the time Samhain took place, and then Pope Gregory IV made the change for the Western Church. To this day, historians don't quite know whether or not the switch was made to transform Samhain into a Christian holiday, or whether it was simply more practical for the feast to be held during autumn, when harvest crops could be used to feed hungry pilgrims traveling to Rome. Later, November 2nd was designated as All Souls' Day, and the eve before All Saints' Day, once known as All Hallows' Day, was dubbed All Hallows' Eve. Over the centuries, this holiday evolved into modern-day Halloween. Even though Samhain was a pagan holiday though, that doesn't mean it was a satanic one. Many people have believed the Celtic holiday has dark origins though, especially Christians who debate even celebrating the holiday in the first place. One article from Time magazine claims that pastors even warn about demonic spirits attached to Halloween traditions, and some parents refuse to let their children trick-or-treat because of it. Schools even ban Halloween traditions altogether for fear of offending religious families, and opt instead to host a fall harvest celebration. However, a fall harvest celebration is actually far closer to the original intent of Samhain. After all, the word itself just means summer's end. The misconception, if anything, is largely because of Charles Valency. He was, according to one source, a British military surveyor and an amateur historian who first visited Ireland in 1762 while on a surveying mission. Valency became fascinated with the region and he wrote a massive 3-volume work on its history and culture. But in his opus, the clueless scholar erroneously claimed that the linguist had mistranslated the word Samhain. Instead of meaning summer's end, he argued it actually referred to a Celtic god alternately named Baal-Sab, Baal meaning Lord and Sab meaning death, Lord of Death. Scholars dismissed his claims, but his writings still perpetuated the myth that the Celts once celebrated a demonic god, Lord Samhain, with burnt human sacrifices and other barbaric rituals. Many early historians describe the Celts as a bloodthirsty people who regularly engage in ritualistic sacrifices, but it's unclear whether there's actually truth to these tales. Plus, none of these accounts, nor ancient Gaelic legends, specifically mention sacrifices occurring during Samhain. I found some sources that claim they did sacrifice animals, but it doesn't seem like experts agree on that either. Point is, even though the Celtic people may have believed in druids and spirits, this wasn't some devil-worshipping tradition, at least not as far as history tells us. When Halloween first came to the US, it was limited in colonial England, again because of rigid Christian beliefs, especially Protestant beliefs, in the New England area. Halloween was far more common in Maryland and southern colonies, but as beliefs and customs of Native Americans and different European groups began to emerge, so did Halloween. The first celebrations were play parties, public events meant to celebrate the harvest. Neighbors shared stories of the dead, told fortunes, danced, sang. Colonial Halloween festivities also featured the telling of ghost stories and mischief makings of all kinds. By the middle of the 19th century, annual autumn festivities were common, but Halloween was not yet celebrated everywhere in the country. In the second half of the 19th century, though, America was flooded with new immigrants. These new immigrants, especially the millions of Irish fleeing the Irish potato famine, helped to popularize the celebration of Halloween nationally. Obviously, Americans didn't follow the old Irish traditions exactly, but they adopted the idea of dressing up in costumes and going house to house asking for food or money, what we now know as trick-or-treating. Before trick-or-treating, though, this was known as mumming, when people dressed as ghosts, demons, or other malevolent creatures performing antics in exchange for food or drink. Sort of like how in Samhain villagers disguised themselves in costumes made of animal skins to drive away phantom visitors, while banquet tables were left out to placate unwelcome spirits. Another aspect of the trick-or-treating tradition actually comes from All Souls' Day on November 2nd. People would visit the houses of wealthier families and receive pastries called soul cakes in exchange for a promise to pray for the souls of the homeowner's dead relatives. Known as souling, the practice was later taken up by children who would go from door to door asking for gifts such as food, money, and ale. Children drinking ale? Yeah, probably not the best idea, but I digress. In Scotland and Ireland, young people took part in a tradition called guising, dressing up in costume and accepting offerings from various households. Rather than pledging to pray for the dead, they would sing a song, recite a poem, tell a joke, or perform another sort of trick, before which collecting their treat, which typically consisted of fruit, nuts, or coins. That's definitely more in line with what trick-or-treating has become today. So it's funny how things change over the years and how this ancient tradition was transformed to revolve around candy, kind of like a really old game of telephone. I don't think there's any harm in dressing up and trick-or-treating so long as parents go with young kids and, you keep safe. Though, well, with pandemic precautions this year, it's probably not the best idea. There's a few other Halloween traditions, too, that date back to more ancient traditions. Apparently, bobbing for apples used to be a form of divination. Ladies would mark an apple, toss it in a tub, and whoever pulled it out of the water with their teeth was their future spouse. Another source says it began as a British courting ritual, popular among young ladies and their potential beaux. There were several variations of game. In one set of rules, each apple was assigned to a potential mate. The bobber would then attempt to bite into the apple named for the young man she desired. If it only took her one try, they were destined for romance. If she succeeded with her second attempt, he would court her, but their love would fade. If it took 3 times, their relationship was doomed. Another approach to the game was a race to be the first to bite an apple. The first to emerge successful would be the first to marry. A related superstition suggested that if a girl put the apple she had bitten underneath her pillow, she would see her future soulmate in her dreams that night. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to me either, but moving on. This game sort of died out until Americans began exploring their immigrant roots, and the game was revived. This one just seems like a superstitious party trick to me. It's not any sort of weird devil-worshipping tradition that would discredit the holiday or give someone reason not to approve of the game. According to Business Insider, it's actually jack-o'-lanterns that symbolize a deal with the devil. Modern-day, intricately designed pumpkin creations certainly make for impressive decorations. But back in the day, folks in Ireland dubbed their carved, fiery turnips jack-o'-lanterns, thanks in part to an ominous legend. One night, a conniving local drunkard named Jack trapped the Prince of Darkness in a tree by hacking the sign of the cross into the bark. In exchange for letting Satan climb down, Jack had him vow to never claim his soul. Jack proceeded to act like a jerk his whole life. When he died, he sure as heck was not allowed into heaven, so he tried to return to his old pal, the devil. But Satan upheld his end of the deal, hurling a piece of coal from hell at the dead man for good measure. Left without anywhere to go, Jack placed the blazing coal in a turnip to use as a lantern. The dead man then set out, doomed to wander until he can find an eternal resting place. So, I guess if anyone doesn't want to celebrate Halloween because of its satanic ties, then all they really need to do is just not carve a pumpkin. Never thought those words would ever leave my mouth. Other stories say that Stingy Jack from the legends invited the devil to have a drink with him. True to his name, Stingy Jack didn't want to pay for his drink, so he convinced the devil to turn himself into a coin that Jack could use to buy their drinks. Once the devil did so, Jack decided to keep the money and put it in his pocket next to a silver cross, which prevented the devil from changing back to his original form. Jack eventually freed the devil under the condition that he would not bother Jack for 1 year, and that, should Jack die, he would not claim his soul. The next year, Jack again tricked the devil into climbing into a tree to pick a piece of fruit. From there, the story is pretty much identical to the first. Jack carved a cross into the tree so the devil couldn't come down until he promised not to bother Jack for, in this case, another 10 years. In Ireland and Scotland, turnips and potatoes were used, and in England, large beets were used to sort of symbolize the jack-o'-lantern. But when immigrants from these countries came to the US, they found that pumpkins, native to America, make for perfect jack-o'-lanterns. So, there you have it. Those are some Halloween traditions, how the holiday itself came to be, and how it became so commercialized. I hope you enjoyed today's deep dive, and I hope you all have a happy Halloween. If you liked today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on that bell icon. I post videos once a week, but figured today would be a bit of an exception to the rule. If you've got any requests for other topics, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!